I'm Tim Flanagan here with another episode of Winning Through Culture. I'm excited today to be with Chris Kriak. Chris is a member of our supervisory team, but more importantly, he is a person who is dedicated to the craft of personal development and leadership development. Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate you having me.
It's good to be with you. So I'd love to start with a little background on you and your journey. The topic we're going to talk about today really is employee engagement, leadership development, but how entrepreneur business can pour into helping their people become better. And specifically, the work you're doing right now in our organization, in addition to your day job, is helping a number of our folks that have volunteered to become better speakers. So I'm really interested maybe to start with a little bit more about your background and kind of what got you not only interested in your professional career, but what got you interested in personal development, leadership development, and public speaking.
Absolutely. I appreciate the question. So this kind of journey that I've been doing with the public speaking thing actually started with me back in high school. In high school, I was part of the mock trial team. So kind of like a moot court type deal. And what I found was that I really had a knack for speaking, but not only speaking, but also speaking in front of people. And from there, that kind of carried me through college, where I was very involved with Greek life, including being president of my fraternity, vice president of an all-Greek honor society called the Order of Omega. I was a sweetheart to a sorority, and also pretty much in charge of the Interfraternal Council. So all of the fraternities, it's their governing body. I did a lot of work with that, and also the director of Greek life. So with my involvement, one of the things that I did was constantly presenting not only on Greek life, but also the benefits of student involvement and engagement and how you essentially take good men and women and make them better. And I just ended up going through and presenting on a pretty much, I'd say, a monthly to twice a month basis. And it just was something that really stuck with me. It was something that I really enjoyed doing. And that ultimately carried into my professional career, where I started to get involved with the risk management development program whenever I started at PNC, where we would be doing presentations on a monthly basis to executives in the company. And also I had an opportunity to present on a shareholders call the one time, which was an awesome experience.
I bet it was.
But to go through and actually develop the craft of public speaking is something that has been a great journey for me. And that ultimately led me to Toastmasters organization. And from there, I was able to develop our little group that we have here, the MassMutual Carolinas Public Speaking Group.
I appreciate you sharing the journey. And it's clearly something that you learned at an early age. You had a gift for and a passion for, and you had an opportunity to apply it. And I think one of the things that I've always found interesting about speaking is, specifically when you think about leadership, so much of leadership is influencing others, communicating, obviously verbally in a written form, but verbal form being super impactful. How have you seen the evolution of your speaking skills? And as you've been involved in Toastmasters, other people mastering that craft, how have you seen that kind of in a parallel sense show up from a leadership perspective?
That's a great question, Tim. And one of the things that you said that I really, truly believe as one of my leadership styles and what makes an effective leader is the ability to influence others. And I think that a lot of the time, influence has this sort of negative connotation where they think it's about persuasion and maybe being shady or being the boss instead of being a leader. And I'm sure that for those who are listening to the podcast, there's definitely an understanding of boss versus a leadership mentality, right? So in order to really develop effective leaders, I think the main thing that people need to focus on is being able to develop their communication style, not only written, but more so verbal. Mm-hmm. How many times have you been sitting on a conference call and the person presenting is, today we have, it's distracting. And the message that they're trying to get across gets lost. And a lot of the times the people don't even realize that they're doing it. But one of the most rewarding things for me is to see individuals who struggle with speaking that have that opportunity to step out of their comfort zone and notice that, hey, I think that I can be a more effective leader by being able to communicate my message and my why to the individuals that report to me. So I want to step out and I want to learn how to make myself a better speaker. And through that, I believe that not only are you able to influence people better, but you're also able to get your message across to those that really need to hear it.
Yeah, I think a thing that's been interesting to me, and I've had the good fortune in my professional life and even all the way back to sixth grade being introduced to public speaking. So it's interesting to hear your story there. It's a learned skill set for sure. And it's something that I do believe anybody can do if they're willing to put themselves out there. But there definitely also, I think, is a correlation to your point about leadership, and it makes someone a more effective leader, not just positional leader, but a leader, influencer of people. So back to what we're doing here at a local level, back to the idea of how to help people in your organization be engaged and develop as leaders or better communicators. Talk a little bit about the idea. I don't know if this was your idea that you brought to Amy, or Amy McCary came to you with an idea after seeing you speak. I don't know the whole story there, but I just know that you spoke to a group of people and they were very impressed and this idea germinated. So maybe tell a story about that to start with.
So this was actually at one of our quarterly meetings that we had, where Amy came to me and said, "Hey, Chris, would you mind filling in for someone as kind of an evaluator for someone in our emerging leaders conversation? They weren't able to be there, but hey, we need an extra person to actually maybe judge this speech." And I said, "Sure." And I said, "Actually, Amy, this is something that hits home with me because I've actually been involved with Toastmasters in the past." And she was kind of blown away by that. So we went through, and after the person gave their speech, I gave a pretty in-depth evaluation talking about all the different speaking factors, their posture, their eye contact, talking about their voice intonation, their use of grammar. I counted the number of ums and uhs that they had. And I think a lot of people were kind of taken back by that.
Who is this guy? Thought he worked in the compliance department.
What's going on here? So after the meeting, Amy came to me and said, "Tell me a little bit more about Toastmasters. Tell me a little bit about what it is that you do." And I said, "Well, for the past year, I've been a member of this public speaking group called Toastmasters, and it's something that I'm very passionate about." And Amy said, "Well, I actually have an emerging leader call coming up on Friday. Would you mind giving a speech, just so that we can kind of hear what it would be like to have a Toastmaster speak?" And I gave a speech and it went pretty well. And after that, Amy and I engaged in a lot more of conversations. And ultimately, we came to the conclusion that, hey, I have an idea. Let's bring this to senior leadership and see if we might have people in the firm that would want to get involved with public speaking at a local level. And since then, we formed the MassMutual Carolinas Public Speaking Group, and I think it's been a great success.
Well, I know from everything I've heard it has. I know that the Emerging Leaders Group you mentioned was something we started actually a few years ago now, in recognition that as we had young people coming into the organization, we needed to kind of pour intentionally into their development, both from a leadership perspective and some other professional and personal development skills. And we've had a formal program around that. So this is a great way to add to that. So Toastmasters International, let's pivot there for a moment. That's a great organization. Why don't you, for those people that don't know about it, maybe take a minute to talk about what Toastmasters is and again, how you got involved.
Sure. So Toastmasters is a public speaking organization that's worldwide. It's been around for over 100 years. And you have a group of professionals that get together, that the whole purpose of the group is to have a safe environment where individuals can practice their public speaking. I got involved with this actually back whenever I was in production with Benchmark Securities, and the individual that I was working with was actually a Toastmaster, and he brought me into a couple of the meetings, and it just kind of clicked. It was something that I enjoyed doing, and I looked forward to our Friday morning meetings. And actually, since I came to MassMutual's, we started in this development program of actually making our own Toastmasters organization here, obviously for copyright reasons and things like that.
Yes.
We can't call it Toastmasters, but
it's our public speaking.
It is our public speaking group.
Yes.
But the structure of the public speaking group is very similar to that of Toastmasters, but I cut out a little bit of the fluff. So with Toastmasters, you have certain positions in there, such as joke master or general evaluator, and some of it can be kind of repetitive. So based on the audience that we had here and the number of individuals that signed up for the group, we just kind of slimmed down a little bit. So I don't necessarily want to call it Toastmasters Light because I don't think that it is, but maybe Toastmasters Fit, I think would be better.
Well, I think to your point, I mean, Toastmasters has got chapters all over the United States. It's a very structured program, years. I mean, 30 plus years I can think of that organization's been around. I think to your point, what we're doing here locally is pouring into our people in a way that helps increase their confidence. And I don't know if this is like urban legend or a fact, but, they say that, there's some percentage of our population that's more afraid of public speaking than death. It's kind of hard to get my head around that. But as you think about the concept of speaking in front of groups, I mean, for those people that are fearful of it, because I'm sure some of the people that are involved in this program fall into that category, man, how do you walk them through? I don't know if the word's confronting that fear or walking through that fear, Chris.
No, it's definitely a real fear. And a lot of people think that the more that you do it, the more that those nerves go away. And I can tell you that that's not necessarily true.
No.
I mean, even today, I get up in front of a group of people and I'm excited about it. I feel the jitters, I feel the nerves, but I think the main piece of advice that I give people whenever they're going to public speak is number one, just speak. Prepare yourself and speak. Nobody in the audience knows whether you missed a word or whether you missed a phrase or anything along those lines. And I'm a firm believer that if you're not messing up, you're not trying.
Right? Yep.
And the real benefit of that is it allows people to step outside of their comfort zone, but do it in an environment where they understand that the feelings that they're having aren't negative.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that they have to rewire their brain to think about is, okay, I'm nervous. My stomach's fluttering. I'm breathing. I'm hyperventilating. I'm shaking. I can't stand straight. I'm swaying back and forth. Instead of telling yourself these are bad things, you need to tell yourself that these are good things because it means that you're excited.
Mm-hmm.
It means that you're prepared. It means that you're ready to go. And that's the first thing that I tell people in the group is that whenever you have those feelings, you need to start telling yourself from now that these are good things. And the group will take care of the rest. We'll tell you how many ums and uhs you've said. We'll tell you if you're not making eye contact. We'll tell you if you're swaying back and forth or if you're leaning or if you're looking up and to the right. These are all things that I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I had an opportunity to present and go through the Toastmasters organization and now even refine those skills even more with our public speaking group here that you learn to deal with those tics in a constructive way that makes you a better speaker.
Yeah, it's a learned skill that requires a lot of time, effort, and discomfort for some people. So,
well, I like that you say it's a learned skill because it is. I think there's a misconception that you have to be born a good public speaker.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just about practice. It's like anything
That's a
else
misconception, yes. Yeah. As you launch this group, everybody that's in it's in it voluntarily.
Right.
What have you experienced so far? What has the group experienced, individuals in the group experienced as they are stepping into this place of discomfort and learning?
Well, I think it kind of gets summed up by our last meeting whenever everyone on the call said, this is our favorite half hour that we have every other week.
Wow.
And
that's an endorsement.
Hey, just
there you go.
Plugging it in there. But
there you go.
The thing that has been most rewarding for me about it was seeing this one individual really develop. And there's one individual on the team, and for purposes, I'm not going to mention
No, I think that's appropriate. Yeah.
Whenever the first time I saw her speak, it was a disaster. Needless to say, she had her feet crossed. She could barely stand. She was visibly shaking. Every other word out of her mouth was, She continued to read off of the PowerPoint. It wasn't a great experience for the audience. And you could kind of see that the audience was a little alienated. And she was one of the individuals that stepped up and said, I want to do this public speaking group. And sure enough, last week, whenever I gave one of my formal speeches, she did the evaluation of my speech. And that evaluation is a 4-minute off-the-cuff evaluation where the person is giving honest feedback, both good and bad, about the speech and is speaking from notes that they've taken during the speech.
Mm-hmm.
And to sit there and listen to her give that evaluation, her voice intonation, her eye contact, the way that she handled herself, the way that she expressed her sentence structure, everything, it was almost flawless. And I think she may have said one in a 4-minute presentation, essentially off the cuff. It was really rewarding to see that. And that is just one of the many success stories that I've seen happen, even in just the short amount of time that we've had this group together.
So that's somebody that not that long ago was really tripping and struggling over doing any type of presentation in front of a group to pivot. What do you attribute the progress to, other than, of course, your great coaching? What do you attribute the progress to?
No, it's not my coaching. It's her willingness to learn.
Yeah,
is really what it is she came in and she said, I want to be a better public speaker. And that is what is most key about this group. And that's what I told Amy whenever we set it up, was we need to ensure that this is not an attendance requirement, that people who sign up for this group, they want to do it because they want to do it, not better. Because they have to.
Yeah. Not a compulsive
thing, not, hey, I got to sign up for this because of XYZ program, whatever. And it's all about forming that type of culture within the group. But also, it's about her willingness to step outside of her comfort zone and to have that mind shift where, okay, these feelings that I'm feeling, these are good things. And here's how I can get better. And it's amazing that the more that people practice and the more that they can embrace that culture and that mindset, you can see changes just even over a few months.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. Beyond this person becoming a much better public speaker, what other changes did you see or have you seen in them?
I think you've seen at least I've seen a large amount of confidence being built. And you've had individuals that work in different corners of the organization who may not interact on a day-to-day basis just because of the job functions, come together and kind of form this nice, neat little group. But it also, what it does is it gives them more confidence in their everyday life. I'm not even talking about professionally, but like you said earlier, there's a portion of the public that they truly fear public speaking. And for someone who is in that category to practice this in a safe environment where they know that they're going to get honest feedback and no one's here to make fun of them, no one's here to make them feel down or feel anything less than what they are, it gives them confidence to not only speak, but to do other things.
Yeah.
And that is by far the most rewarding part of this group.
Well, and I suspected that's what you were going to say, because again, I think that by becoming a better communicator, certainly verbally, one acquires a level of confidence that allows them to continue to put themselves out there and expand their comfort zone to even greater extent. So I think that's awesome. So I'll ask this question, maybe tongue in cheek a little bit, but secrets of being a good public speaker. I'm not sure there are secrets, but what's the framework in your mind, Chris, of executing a good speech?
Sure. It's just about being prepared, practice, and understand that you will make mistakes. And again, like I said before, if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying. And that's the biggest thing for people is I think everyone, whenever they speak, they feel like they have to be perfect and they put all this pressure on themselves, and it's really unnecessary.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of it is that speaking is an art. And I truly believe that it's an art in the sense that how many times have you gone to a museum and taken a look at a painting and said, I wonder what that artist is trying to say? And each individual person has a different interpretation of that painting or of that sculpture. And I don't think that public speaking is any different. I think that it's actually quite similar to it. The whole point of speaking and speech in general is to communicate a message to a group of people and allow them to openly interpret that message. It's an art. At the end of the day, that's what it is. So whenever you think that you're messing up or that you're misspeaking or that you're leaving out a word or a sentence or things along those lines, it's no different than an artist that may or may not use the right color with a brushstroke. It adds to the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
You can't judge the Mona Lisa by one brushstroke. You have to take a step back and look at the entire picture.
That's a very great perspective. And I was listening to a podcast this morning. Andy Stanley was interviewing Tim Elmore, who just wrote a book called The 8 Paradoxes of Leadership. And in that book, there's a chapter about Martin Luther King and his I Have a Dream speech. And I did not know this until this morning, but that was originally planned as an 11-minute speech that he prepared extensively for. And towards the tail end of his prepared remarks, became aware, and that was a very large audience there in Washington, D.C. that day, that it wasn't clicking. And he added 6 minutes. And in the 6 minutes he added was the I Have a Dream. And I think that I found that to be a fascinating story because I didn't know that. And obviously, to your point, that those were spoken words that were profound in the establishment of a civil rights movement in this country. And he was prepared extensively for the 11 minutes, but he also was skilled enough to know that he needed more. And he was able to pull that out of really his heart. That's where that came from, I'm sure, and what then connected with people. And I think that's maybe the last piece on speaking I'd have you touch on is what about ultimately the connection to the audience component of that?
It's like anything else in our business, it's about knowing your customer.
Yeah.
And in speaking, it is about knowing your audience.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell if someone's engaged. You can just see it, even on a Zoom call. How many times do you see people clicking away, maybe sending an email, maybe doing something along those lines? And that's whenever, as a speaker, you need to have enough skill and enough self-awareness that maybe your message isn't clicking.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you prepare differently? How can you say your message in a different way? And that's actually one of the things that we train for in our public speaking group. There's a section that we call Spotlight, and it's very similar to the table topics questions in Toastmasters, where they are 2-minute little off-the-cuff speeches of a topic that you don't know what it is until you're asked right before it. And those questions can be prepared by the Spotlight coordinator who will ask the question, and then they call on you. And you have to give an impromptu speech. And you can tell in that impromptu speech, even in just 2 minutes, if your audience is engaged or not.
Yeah. To your point, it is a learned skill. It is an art. It's a very effective way to connect with and influence people, quite frankly, to create a movement. And it is a skill set that done well builds confidence in individuals. And to your point, Chris, that confidence plays out in every area of their life. So a part of the purpose of Winning Through Culture is aimed at helping entrepreneurs and business owners establish a winning culture. What advice would you have for someone that says, you know what, this is a topic that I've maybe thought about before, I'm aware of, my people could definitely use some skill development in becoming a better public speaker. What advice would you give that business owner?
The biggest advice is allow your people to feel comfortable and create a culture and create an environment where these individuals can step up and speak. Whether it's actually a formal structure, like something like our public speaking group or a Toastmasters organization, or just a coffee talk where people sit down and have a cup of coffee in the morning together and just talk. The more that you practice it, even if it's in an informal environment, you're still allowing people to speak and get a group of people together to do it. Really, the first step on the journey is just to, number one, understand that everyone meets on the level. And that whether you're the CEO of the organization or you're the maintenance staff, at the end of the day, in that moment, you're all on the same level. You're all on the same plane. And you're all there to get better. Create that environment and watch how amazing it is to see people advance in their speaking skill.
Yeah, I think that creating that safety is super important because back to what we talked about, people's fear of speaking, if they don't feel safe, they're definitely not going to engage. So if I were a business owner, and I have not had any formal, if I haven't had the benefit of anything formal, obviously Toastmasters International, that's an international organization with local chapters. As you got involved, probably a great way to go and learn how to become a better speaker. And then there may be, I know I had the good fortune at one point in my professional career of being sent to not one, but two different programs over a span of a few years where we were taught some very specific speaking and presentation skills. So there's plenty of resources out there, not the least of which probably are some YouTube videos. But I think today, at least, we gave everybody some good practical advice on the why of being intentional around structuring a development opportunity for your people, leadership opportunity to become a better speaker, what that entails as far as the impact you can have, and then ultimately some of the resources. So any other advice or any parting thoughts today on the topic of engaging people as leaders and becoming better public speakers?
Just remember that public speaking is an art, and that every person who does it is going to have a different interpretation. You can't judge a painting by one single brushstroke. It's all about taking a step back and looking at the entire picture and allow people to take the interpretation of what it is that you're saying and how you're saying that to create your masterpiece.
Well, that's awesome. So that is a masterpiece in and of itself, and I think we'll end there, Chris. So thank you again for being a guest today on Winning Through Culture. It's Tim Flanagan, another episode of Winning Through Culture. Until we see you again, be well.